had 3 pets, pampered, glossy, and almost unreal looking in how perfect they were. My rich friend, Zara, was obsessed with them. Every time she came over, she'd scoop one up like she owned the place and laugh, "You little darlings are so gorgeous and well-behaved. Why don't you just sell them to me? Name your price." I always laughed it off. Zara joked the way other people breathed. Then the floating text appeared above her head. "When is this cannon fodder going to die already? If you can't take care of them, don't keep them. Our male leads are starving on her cheap food. It's painful to watch. They wouldn't even put up with her if they didn't need her for their transformation. Soon. The cannon fodder has a brain tumor and no money for treatment. She's going to be gone any minute now. Once she's gone, the 3 male leads can go home with a female lead and start their happily ever after. Hey! Right before she goes, she'll beg the female lead to take them. Little does she know, the male leads are letting her fade on purpose. They've been waiting for this." My stomach went cold. I stared at the 3 creatures currently purring and charming Zara like she was the sun. A quiet, sharp anger settled in my chest, clean and steady, like a blade sliding into place. "You know what?" I heard myself say. The words came out tight. "I will." Zara blinked. "Huh? 10,000 each," I said. "Take your pick." The living room went silent. Apollo, my calico cat, the professional heart stealer, paused mid-rub against Zara's chin. Styx, the small black snake draped around her wrist, lifted his head slightly. Even Gizmo, my pokey little hedgehog on the sofa, stopped grooming his paws. All 3 of them looked at me. And then the bullet screen above my vision exploded, like someone had tossed a rock into a still lake. What did I just hear? 10,000 each? How dare this dead cannon fodder set a price like that? Wow. The wicked cannon fodder shows her true colors. She was acting like a doting owner 1 second ago. She must be desperate for cash. Is she trying to swindle our sweet female lead? I knew it. She only kept pets to curry favor with Zara. Manipulative. I kept my face calm. Almost tired. Like this was a decision I'd made weeks ago. Zara recovered first. Her smile came back in a softer, awkward shape as she looked from the pets in her arms to me. "Elena. What are you talking about?" "I was kidding," she said, embarrassment threading through her voice. "Aren't they your absolute treasures? How could you sell them?" I let out a small sigh, the kind that sounded real because it didn't have to be fully fake. "They are my treasures," I said gently. "But reality is a factor now." I met her eyes, steady and sincere. "I lost my job recently. Nothing solid has come up. And honestly, I can barely keep up anymore." Zara's expression shifted, sympathy, confusion, a flicker of guilt. "They'd probably be happier with you anyway," I continued, gesturing lightly around the room. "Look at all this. The fancy cat tree. The organic treats. Gizmo's climate-controlled setup. You bought most of it. With you, they'll have a real life. Not whatever I'm scraping together." I didn't give her time to protest. "I'm in a bind," I said, softening my voice like I was admitting something humiliating. "If you truly love them, and you're willing to help me out. 10,000 each. Anyone you want. Think of it as bailing me out." Zara went quiet. The bullet screen surged again. "Female lead, don't believe her. She's exploiting your kindness." "A bind? Please. She's sick anyway, money won't change anything. Hurry up and get them away from her. She doesn't deserve them." Zara hesitated, then bit her lip. "Okay," she said finally. "Maybe I'll take one for now. I wouldn't want you to be completely alone." Perfect. I wanted her to take all 3 and save me the trouble. They were beautiful, adored, and, apparently, counting down the minutes until I disappeared. But a sudden shift would look strange. So I nodded like I was making a sacrifice. "Whatever you think is best," I said. "Take whichever one you've bonded with most." Zara knelt down, still holding Apollo. Styx and Gizmo had inched closer, watching her like contestants at a final round. Styx lifted higher, tongue flickering fast. Gizmo's bead black eyes locked on her, still as a statue. Then Apollo made his move. He let out a soft, sweet meow and rubbed his velvety head against Zara's chin like his life depended on it. His tail stood straight up, the tip curled into a perfect question mark. He began kneading her cashmere sweater with blissful devotion. At the same time, his back legs gave two quick little kicks, so fast they looked accidental, landing neatly against the approaching snake and hedgehog. Sticks and Gizmo both tumbled back. The bullet screen howled with delight. Ha ha! Nice one, kitty. That's how you win the attention battle. All hail Cat King. We knew you loved our Zara the most. Sorry, Snakey and Gizmo. Team Apollo. Zara laughed, instantly helpless. Apollo was a masterpiece when he wanted something. Watching him perform, I felt something hollow open in me. When I first found Apollo, he'd been skinny and filthy, trailing me down the block like a shadow for the chance of a scrap. The day I brought him home, he'd acted exactly like this, rubbing my legs, rolling over, purring so loud it felt like gratitude. I'd softened. Even though I already had Sticks and Gizmo, I'd thought, what's one more? But once he was comfortable, he turned distant. If I tried to pet him, he'd pull away like I was an inconvenience. Sometimes he'd swipe in irritation, leaving me with shallow scratches. He ignored the toys. His days became eating and sleeping in the sun. Only when Zara arrived did he become this affectionate angel again, purring, clinging, begging for imported tuna like he'd been born in her house. So no. It wasn't loyalty. It was calculation. Just like the bullet screen said, they weren't mine. They were waiting. Enduring. Zara squeezed Apollo's paw, eyes glowing. He's just so attached, she said. Fine. I'll take Apollo. She pulled out her phone and tapped a few times. My phone chimed immediately. $10,000 deposited into your account. There you go, Elena, Zara said, bright with relief at solving a problem. She slid Apollo into a luxurious designer pet carrier like she was tucking away a treasure. I'll take him home now. Don't worry. I'll take the best care of him. I know you will, I said, voice level. And because I couldn't help myself, because I wanted to see if it was true, I added lightly, if you ever want him to have a companion, you know where to find me. I still have two here. I gestured to Sticks and Gizmo. Zara paused, then smiled as if the idea pleased her. That sounds good, she said, and carried her new favorite out the door. The living room fell quiet again. Just me. And the two that remained. Sticks had lifted nearly half his body off the floor without me noticing. His pupils were narrow, fixed on me, tongue working fast. Gizmo, normally slow and sleepy, had gone rigid. His tiny claws gripped the rug, and his quills stood bristled, defensive. It was like they couldn't understand why their careful, accommodating servant had suddenly stopped playing her role. The bullet screen was still chattering. The remaining two are stunned, abandoned. That's what you get for not groveling like the cat. But wait. Isn't this weird? She was devoted to them. Why sell them at all? She needs cash. Duh. Even pet influencers love their animals and still profit off them. I walked toward Sticks, planning to return him to his habitat. The moment I reached out, he struck, fast as a snapped rubber band. I jerked back, but not quite fast enough. A sharp graze stung along my skin. A silence settled between us. Before, if he lashed out, I'd do what every patient owner does. I'd breathe. I'd speak gently. I'd pretend love could teach a predator to stop being what it was. But something in me had shifted. Not into cruelty. Into clarity. I didn't have the time or energy to beg anything, affection, loyalty, mercy, from creatures that were already imagining my absence like a happy ending. With steady hands, I gripped Sticks firmly behind the head and lifted him into the air. He twisted, tense, furious. I placed him directly into his climate-controlled enclosure and shut the lid with a solid, final click. I secured the latch. He froze on a branch, stunned. The bullet screen erupted again, furious, dramatic, vicious. But I didn't care. I crossed the room, grabbed a thick bath towel, and approached Gizmo. He immediately rolled into a tight defensive ball, quills flared. Fine. I draped the towel over him, lifted him carefully, and set him into his habitat. I closed and secured the lid. And then, for the first time since the floating text had appeared, the world felt quieter. Not because the bullet screen stopped. Because I stopped listening? I pulled out my phone and booked a full-body checkup at the best hospital in the city. 3 days later, I sat in an oncologist's office with a folder in my lap and my pulse beating too loudly in my ears. He looked at me with a careful kind of seriousness. "Miss Elena Vance," he said, "your test results are back. We found a tumor in your brain. The location is difficult, and the size is significant. Our preliminary diagnosis suggests it's mid-stage." My fingers tightened around the folder. He paused, and when he spoke again, his tone shifted, still serious, but steadier. "The good news is we caught it in time. If you had waited longer, it could have become much harder to treat. Surgery is possible, but it will be complex and it carries risks." I swallowed. "And the cost?" He didn't hesitate. "We estimate at least $200,000. He said it like a number could be calm. Like numbers didn't ruin lives. I nodded anyway, because nodding was the only thing my body remembered how to do. My mind, meanwhile, kept flicking back to those smug, scrolling lines over my vision. "No money for treatment. She's going to be gone any minute now." I forced my voice to stay level. "That's the total cost," I clarified, steady as I could. "But what's the out-of-pocket?" The doctor's gaze softened, like he'd seen this question 1,000 times and hated it every time. "You still have coverage through your previous employer for a short grace period," he said. "With insurance and hospital assistance programs, your portion could be significantly less." "How much less?" I asked, not breathing. He tapped the folder. "We can't finalize it without approvals, but based on what we see. Roughly 30,000. Possibly a little more with post-op rehab. We'll prepare a full plan." 30,000. That number didn't feel calm, either. But it did feel reachable. A cliff instead of the sky. The bullet screen flared, almost laughing at me. "She's pretending to care now, how fake. Even if she gets money, it won't matter. It's already written. Cannon fodder dies. Hurry up and give the leads back to Zara." I didn't argue with it. I didn't plead with it. I just walked out of that office with my papers tucked under my arm like I wasn't carrying the weight of a countdown. On the train ride home, the city blurred past the windows, glass towers, coffee shops, people with earbuds and plans. Everyone looked like they belonged to a world where tomorrow was assumed. I kept my face composed, the same way I'd kept it composed in my living room. The same way I'd kept it composed when Apollo chose Zara without a second of doubt. Clarity, I reminded myself. Not cruelty. Just clarity. That night, my apartment felt too quiet. The enclosures sat in their corners like empty stages. The air held the ghost of soft paws and tiny claws and a faint, sweet scent of expensive pet treats Zara used to bring. I stared at the locked habitat where sticks lay coiled and still, eyes like dark glass, watching me. "Don't worry," I murmured, almost gently. "You'll get your happy ending." Then I opened my contacts and tapped Zara's name. She answered on the second ring, voice bright. "Elena. Hey. Are you okay?" "Yeah," I said, and let just enough exhaustion leak into my tone to make it believable. "I'm hanging in." There was a pause, and then her voice softened. "How are you feeling, really?" I almost laughed at the irony. The only reason she'd ever asked that with real interest was because my breathing kept her little fantasy running smoothly. But I played my part. "Honestly? Not great," I admitted. "I'm trying to get things sorted." "I'm so sorry," Zara said quickly, as if sympathy was an outfit she could throw on. "And, hey, Apollo is amazing. He's perfect, Elena. He follows me everywhere. I go to the bathroom and he literally sits outside the door like a bodyguard." The camera shifted, and there he was, my glossy, gorgeous Apollo, draped over Zara like he'd been born there. He rubbed his head against her hand, purring so loud the microphone fuzzed. He didn't even glance at the screen. The bullet screen filled my vision again, almost reverent. Look at her. That's where she belongs? Not that cramped little apartment. Zara's place is a palace? If Elena had any decency, she'd hand the others over too. Zara's smile turned a little tentative. "So, I was thinking," she said carefully. "Apollo seems lonely. Like he needs a companion." My mouth curled into the smallest, flattest smile. Here it was. Right on schedule. "I still have sticks and Gizmo," I said, letting my voice wobble like I was embarrassed to bring it up. I wasn't going to push, but if you really want. "I do," Zara said too fast. Then she forced herself to slow down, to sound considerate. Only if you're comfortable. Same price as before, of course. I hate the thought of them not being taken care of properly. The bullet screen practically chanted. Yes. Take them. Take them all. Set the leads free. Cannon fodder is disposable. I took a breath, as if I were wrestling with a hard decision. Then I tilted my phone camera toward the enclosures. Sticks reacted instantly. The second he realized Zara was watching, his body lifted, not with aggression this time, but with desperate intent. He pressed against the clear wall like he could will his way through it. His tongue flicked rapidly. The cold, superior creature who'd struck at me an hour earlier suddenly became eager. Gizmo, too, no longer sleepy, no longer indifferent. He stretched out of his usual curl, lifted his tiny face toward the camera, and blinked with wet, shining eyes like he'd been practicing that look for an audience. He even pushed something forward with his paws, a little treat he'd hoarded, like an offering. The performance was almost beautiful. Almost. The bullet screen erupted in squeals and arguments. Snake is trying so hard. Hedgehog is smarter, look at the gift. Zara, just take both. Why make it complicated? Take them all. Zara's gaze moved between them, indecisive, charmed, flattered by their attention. And I watched her the same way I'd watched Apollo. Calculation meeting calculation. Finally, Zara exhaled. Okay, she said, pointing at Gizmo with a soft laugh. Him. He looks like he needs me. My throat tightened, not with sadness, not with grief, but with a memory of how much I'd once loved that tiny creature. When I found Gizmo, he'd been half hidden near a dumpster behind my building, trembling and hurt in a way that made my stomach drop. I'd scooped him up against my chest, ran him to an emergency clinic, sat in a plastic chair for hours with my hands shaking. I'd fed him with a syringe. I'd set alarms through the night. I'd gone days on almost no sleep just to make sure he stayed warm, stayed alive. I'd called it love. Later, when I got sick with a fever so intense the room spun, I'd reached for him on instinct, just a little comfort, just a little warmth, and he'd curled away so fast his quills caught my skin. It hadn't been personal. But it hadn't been love, either. So I kept my face smooth and said, okay. If that's what you want. Zara's fingers flew over her phone. My phone chimed. $10,000 deposited into your account. I'm going to buy him the biggest setup, Zara said, pleased with herself. Like a whole luxury habitat. He's going to live like a king. Of course, I said quietly. That's what he deserves. Then Zara hesitated, her expression flickering as if a thought had finally caught up with her. Elena. Gizmo was your first, right? Are you sure you're okay with this? I lifted my eyes and held her gaze through the screen, calm and sincere. How could I not be okay? I said softly. He'll be happier with you. The bullet screen mocked me anyway. Look at her pretending. Money's in her pocket, of course she's fine. She's so fake it's gross. Zara's assistant came the next day, polite and efficient, carrying a designer carrier like Gizmo was a priceless artifact. I handed him over without shaking. Without clinging. Without begging. When the door shut, my living room went quiet again. Me. And Sticks. He stayed lifted in his enclosure long after Zara was gone, eyes locked on me like he was trying to decide whether to hate me or fear me. The bullet screen drifted across my vision with lazy satisfaction. Only one left. Hurry up and die already. Then everything goes back to the real storyline. I should have felt relief. Instead, my body started betraying me. It wasn't dramatic at first. Just headaches that came more often, sharper, deeper, like someone was twisting something inside my skull. Nausea that hit out of nowhere. A fog that settled over my thoughts until simple tasks felt like walking through waist-high water. Then, one morning, I stood at my bathroom sink and saw myself in the mirror, too pale, lips dry, eyes shadowed, and the room tilted. My stomach heaved. I gripped the counter. A metallic taste bloomed at the back of my throat. When I looked down, I saw it, just enough to make my hands go cold. The bullet screen went feral. She's crashing. She's crashing. She's finally going to die. Snake is speeding it up, she wants out. Hurry up, hurry up. I stared at my reflection, the smear at the corner of my mouth, my own face looking like a stranger's. So that's it, I whispered. You couldn't even wait. I wiped my mouth, rinsed the sink, and reached for my phone with fingers that didn't quite feel like mine. I called Zara again. She answered, a little breathless, like she'd been living in a new kind of chaos. Elena? I kept my voice weak, real this time, because I didn't have to fake it anymore. Zara. I need a favor. Her eyes widened. What's wrong? I'm getting worse, I said, and let the truth land like a weight. The doctor wants me admitted soon. I can't. I can't take care of sticks. I can't even stand here without the room spinning. Zara's mouth parted, and for a split second, something like genuine alarm crossed her face. Then, almost immediately, something else flickered behind it. Relief. Or anticipation. Oh my God, she said quickly. Elena, that's serious. But, listen, I already ordered something for sticks. My heart beat once, heavy. You did? I asked, like I was surprised. Zara nodded too fast. A custom habitat. Huge. Temperature controlled. Like a whole ecosystem. I wasn't going to say anything until you were ready, but if you're asking, I can come today. I can take him off your hands right now. Of course she could. The bullet screen practically sang. She was waiting for this. She's so ready. Give her the last one. End the arc. I swallowed, steadying myself. Yes, I said softly. Please. Zara's people arrived within hours. They handled Styx's enclosure like it contained something fragile and precious, like it might explode if jostled. Styx stayed coiled tight, tense and furious, tongue flicking nonstop. But he didn't strike at them. He saved his anger for me, eyes drilling into mine through the clear wall as they lifted him away. My phone chimed one last time. $10,000 deposited into your account. $30,000. Exactly what I needed for the out-of-pocket estimate. I stood in the middle of my suddenly emptied living room, surrounded by leftover toys and the faint marks of 3 small lives that had never truly been mine. The bullet screen rolled on, delighted and triumphant. All collected. Congratulations. Now the shape-shifting arc begins. Zara's happy ending is here. I closed my eyes and took one slow breath. Then I opened them again, and something inside me felt quiet. Clear. I called the hospital. Hi, I said, voice steady. This is Elena Vance. Please schedule my surgery as soon as possible. I didn't hesitate. I checked in. I signed papers. I took scans. I listened to nurses explain risks and recovery and timelines. I nodded through it all like I wasn't staring down the edge of my own life. The night before the procedure, alone in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and clean sheets, I lay awake and thought about 3 glossy little creatures curled in Zara's mansion, purring and coiling and blinking like innocent treasures. And I thought about those floating lines. About being written off. About being called cannon fodder like it was natural. When they wheeled me toward the operating room, the ceiling light slid past overhead in a slow, bright blur. My eyes stunned for a second, and I wasn't sure if it was fear or anger or exhaustion. Probably all 3. The anesthesiologist's voice was gentle. You're going to feel sleepy. The medication flooded my veins. My thoughts stretched thin. And then the world went dark. When I came back, it was in fragments, voices, beeping, weight of blankets, the soreness in my scalp that made me want to curl into myself. A doctor leaned into my line of sight, smiling in a careful, practiced way. Ms. Vance, he said, warm with relief, the surgery went very well. My throat was dry. I tried to speak, and only air came out at first. He waited, patient. You're going to have a long recovery, he continued, but the tumor was removed. We'll monitor closely. We'll do follow-ups. For now. You made it through. I blinked slowly. Made it through. The bullet screen didn't congratulate me. It didn't cheer. It didn't soften. If anything, it seemed offended. Why is she alive? This wasn't supposed to happen. The storyline is broken. How did cannon fodder survive? I stared at those words with a calm that surprised me. I survived, I whispered, barely audible. And for the first time, the floating text didn't feel like fate. It felt like noise. Recovery was boring in the cruelest way, day after day of small progress and stubborn fatigue. Physical therapy. Follow-up scans. Quiet walks down sterile hallways. learning my limits, respecting them, pushing them carefully anyway. But each week, the headaches eased. The nausea faded. The fog in my mind lifted like a curtain. And in the middle of all that, Zara's life kept flashing into my phone. At first, she posted constantly. Apollo sprawled across her designer suit, smug and glossy. Sticks wrapped around her wrist like jewelry, resting his head against her watch. Gizmo in a sprawling luxury setup that looked like a miniature penthouse. Her captions were all sunshine and pride. My babies. My lucky charms. My perfect little family. The bullet screen would still appear sometimes when I scrolled, giddy and excited. Look how happy they are. Now the real arc begins. Zara's fortune is about to explode. Elena's dead. Oh wait. Why is she still alive? But then, gradually, the posts changed. Less frequent. More filtered. More forced. The backgrounds shifted, one photo in a bright mansion, the next in a different room, the next in a place that looked smaller. The furniture in the corners started to look worn, like it had been moved too many times. Zara's smile looked tighter. Her eyes looked a little too bright, a little too strained. The bullet screen, confused, started slipping in questions. Why isn't Zara posting as much? Why does her house look different? Is something wrong? No. Impossible. Zara's the lead. I didn't react. I focused on getting stronger. I got discharged. I went home to my quiet apartment. I slept with the windows open and the city's distant hum like a lullaby. I didn't rush back into work. I didn't rush into anything. I had money in my account and a body that was slowly, stubbornly returning to me. And then, one afternoon, my doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I didn't recognize the person standing there at first. Zara used to look like she'd stepped out of an ad, perfect hair, perfect skin, effortless confidence, expensive everything. Now she looked hollow. Her face was sallow. Shadows carved deep under her eyes. Her hair was pulled back in a sloppy knot like she hadn't cared enough to fix it. Even her designer coat looked rumpled, like it had been slept in. The second she saw me, something in her expression broke. Elena, she choked out, and her voice cracked like she'd been holding it together with thread. Please. I didn't move aside. I didn't invite her in. I just watched her, calm and silent, and waited. She grabbed my shoulders like she needed something solid to keep her upright. Take them back, she said, words tumbling out in panic. Please. Take them back. I can't, Elena, I can't do this anymore. My heart didn't jump. My stomach didn't twist. All I felt was that same old clarity, cold and steady. What are you talking about? I asked, almost gently. Her eyes filled. Your pets. Those three things. She swallowed hard, shaking. Ever since they came into my house, everything has been going wrong. Everything. My dad's investments started collapsing out of nowhere. Our company had issues. Money problems that don't make sense. My mom got sick again and again. And me, she pressed a trembling hand to her chest. I've been angry all the time. Exhausted. Like something is being pulled out of me. The bullet screen popped up, startled like it had been slapped. Wait. Zara's suffering? That's not right. This is the lead, she's supposed to win. Is it backlash? Zara's voice dropped into a whisper. And they've changed. One day they're listless like they're fading, the next they're too intense. Too needy. Like they're desperate. They follow me everywhere. They won't let me breathe. My house doesn't feel like mine anymore. She squeezed my shoulders harder. I swear I feel like my luck is draining out of me. Like my life is thinning. I tilted my head slightly. And how would you know what that feels like? Zara flinched, like my words had teeth. Her mouth opened. Closed. Then, like someone choosing to jump because standing on the edge is worse, she blurted, because my family used to. She stopped herself. Her eyes darted, wild, like she was afraid the walls might repeat her. I held her gaze, unblinking. Used to what? Zara's breath hitched. And then she broke. Because my family has a history, she said, voice rising with desperation. A history with things like this. Call it folklore, call it superstition, I don't care what you call it. But I knew what they were. The hallway felt suddenly too quiet. Even the air seemed to pause. Zara's eyes shone with a feverish kind of honesty now. I got close to you because I sensed it, she admitted, words spilling like poison finally released. I thought you didn't know. I thought you were just lucky. Like you had something on you that made them stick. Her nails dug into my arms. I thought they were going to change. I thought when they finally became what they were supposed to be, I could take them and my family would benefit. That weed. She swallowed, voice cracking into a sob. I thought you were going to die. The bullet screen exploded into chaos. What? She knew? She's been using Elena? This is disgusting. Zara isn't innocent? The lead is rotten? I felt the truth land in me like a stone sinking into water. I wasn't surprised. Not really. But hearing it out loud, hearing the naked calculation behind every smile, every joke, every concerned question, still made something in my chest go quiet and heavy. Zara shook her head violently, tears dropping onto her own sleeves. I thought I got a bargain. I thought I won. But you didn't die, Elena. You lived. And now they can't stabilize. They're feeding on me instead, trying to keep themselves together, and they're tearing my life apart. She looked up at me like a child begging. Why didn't you die? She whispered, almost accusing. I stared at her for a long second. Then I exhaled, slow and even. Because I refused to, I said. Zara's sob caught in her throat. Please, she whispered again. Take them back. I'll pay you. I'll pay you anything. Just take them away. She fumbled behind her, dragging something forward. A cheap carrier. 2 small travel enclosures stacked awkwardly like she'd thrown them together in a rush. She opened them with shaking hands. Inside, the 3 creatures looked wrong. Not injured in some dramatic way. Not something I could point at and call justice. Just wrong. Like the shine had been scraped off them. Like their glamour had thinned. Apollo's coat was tangled, his eyes too bright with nervous agitation. Styx's scales looked duller, his body tightly coiled, tongue flicking fast in constant, restless warning. Gizmo was curled so tightly he barely looked like himself, his small body trembling with a kind of exhausted stillness. Zara choked on a sob. See? See what they've become? I didn't step closer. Then I heard something that made the skin along my arms prickle. A voice. Not Zara's. Not human. Elena, it whispered, thin, urgent, trembling. Owner. Elena. Apollo's mouth didn't move like a person's would, but the sound was there anyway, sliding into my mind like a cold breath. Please, the voice begged. We were wrong. Another voice followed, faint as a dying spark. I could have helped you, it said, Gizmo, impossibly. I could have made you better. But it would have cost me. And I didn't want to pay. Then Styx, strained and bitter and terrified all at once. I have things, the voice rasped. Savings. Hidden. I could have given you enough. I thought you were already done. I didn't want to waste it on someone who was leaving. They talked over each other, a frantic chorus of regret and pleading and late, useless truth. They knew. They had always known. They knew why I was sick. They knew what they were taking. They knew what I needed. And they watched me fade anyway, waiting for the moment I would become convenient. My face didn't change. My heart didn't soften. I felt nothing but a clean, almost peaceful emptiness. Now you're sorry, I said quietly. The 3 voices went still. I looked at Zara. Her eyes were swollen, wild with hope and fear. You paid $30,000, I reminded her softly. You bought them. That was your choice. Zara shook her head, sobbing. Elena. And now, I continued, voice calm as glass, you want to return them because they're ruining your life. Zara's breath hitched. They're doing to you, I cut in gently, what they were doing to me. The bullet screen was screaming now, frantic, panicked. She understands everything. She figured out the rules. This isn't the original plot anymore. This is wrong, this is wrong. I took 1 step back, into the safety of my own doorway. Zara lurched forward. Please. I didn't let her finish. I'm not their owner anymore, I said, steady and final. And I'm not yours. Zara's face twisted. You can't do this. I met her eyes without blinking. Watch me. Then I closed the door. Not slammed. Just closed. A clean, simple end. She stayed outside for a long time. I could hear movement, shuffling, muffled sobs, the scrape of plastic against concrete. The bullet screen kept chattering above my vision like a live audience losing its mind. If she won't take them back, they can't switch owners. They need consent. Zara's doomed. This can't be happening. Eventually, the sounds faded. Silence returned. Days passed. Then weeks. Through the bullet screen, through the same cruel, obsessive commentary that once celebrated my death, I learned what happened next. Zara's family luck didn't bounce back. It kept shrinking, like a candle burning down to the wick. The three creatures deteriorated fast, losing whatever illusion had once made them look like perfect, lovable pets. And Zara? Zara stopped posting entirely. There were rumors. Whispers. Fragmented lines in the floating text that sounded less like entertainment and more like discomfort. Zara tried to get rid of them. She couldn't handle them anymore. They're turning feral. This is backlash. This is punishment. The details that followed were messy and ugly and full of consequences I didn't need to picture. I didn't take pleasure in it. I didn't mourn it either. Because none of it was an accident. None of it was fate. It was choice. They used me. They drained me. They waited for me to disappear so they could step into a brighter life without paying the price. And the moment I refused to die, the bill came due. One evening, as I sat alone in my quiet living room, the kind of quiet that used to feel lonely and now felt like freedom, I lifted my eyes to the floating text still lingering in the air. You really thought I had no right to live, I said, voice low. The bullet screen stuttered. Then it surged with frantic denial. She can see us? How is that possible? We're just viewers. We're not part of the world. I stared straight through it, like I was looking into a crowd that had been laughing while I bled. Is it because you called me cannon fodder? I asked calmly. Because you decided I was disposable? The text froze. For one heartbeat, everything went still. Then the air flooded with symbols, exclamation marks, scrambled outrage, panic so loud it felt like static. And then, like someone yanked a plug, it all cut out. The floating words shivered. Collapsed. Vanished. No more commentary. No more jeering. No more countdown. Just air. Just silence. Just my own thoughts, finally unoccupied. Life didn't become magically perfect after that. But it became mine again. I went back to work when I was ready. I took things slowly at first, then faster as my strength returned. I kept my head down. I showed up. I learned. I earned trust the hard way. Promotions came. Raises followed. My bank account grew in a steady, honest climb that felt better than any luck ever could. And sometimes, on quiet mornings when the sun spilled across my floor the way it used to spill across Apollo's fur, I'd feel something warm and subtle settle over me. Not magic. Not destiny. Just the sense that whatever had been stolen from me, whatever invisible current of possibility those creatures had siphoned away, was drifting back, piece by piece, because I was still here to claim it. I never got another pet. People assumed it was because of trauma. Because I couldn't bear it. They weren't entirely wrong. But the truth was simpler than that. Once you've held something in your hands, loved it like family, and realized it was only waiting for your death with polite patience, you stop craving companionship that feels like a transaction. These days, I enjoy my solitude. I enjoy my quiet. I enjoy the way my home stays peaceful because nothing in it is secretly rooting for my ending. And most of all, I enjoy being alive in a story that was never supposed to let me live.